Okay. Oh boy. The Mag 18 is out. This is why it came out. Hey everyone, we're back on the 1882 project. It's engine time. Got it to run pretty well, but it's leaky, and I have no idea what's going on behind the shrouds. It looks pretty wet back in here. But anyway, the idea is I'm gonna pull the engine out, pull all the shrouding off, and check it out. Couple fixes along the way. We're gonna do head gaskets. We're gonna fix the breather system on it, and in general, just take care of it. We're gonna replace the oil filter lines here. Gonna put in do a final install on the gauge. Get rid of some of that nylon tube that is feeding it right now. The first step is to take it outside and get as much of the grease and grime off of it as possible without going too far. Just to make it a little easier to work on. So let's go wash it down. We've got some outside light here. You can kind of see how gross things are. There may be a hydraulic leak in here. I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell if it's coming from the steering valve or if it's coming elsewhere. Cut the top of the engine down. We're just gonna keep on going. While this is open, might as well get in here. She's gross. It's really gross. I don't think this has been touched since 1990, probably. I'm not going to bother pulling the fender pan all the way off, but I will get in here, clean some of this up so it's easier to work on this area too once I get back to the hydro controls, because they're not great either. They're a little sloppy, a lot of adjustment. And we'll probably do some wiring while we're in here too, while the engine's out. It's pretty bad. Oh yeah, you can see there's no firewall on this anywhere. It's just gone. I don't know what happened to it. The other cool thing is, I'll show you in a second. I might as well clean the PTO off. The guy I got this from mentioned something about the engine not being bolted down when he got it. And I was like, oh, that's funny. He said something about it either strapped down or duct taped down or something. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, I didn't think much about it. You know, since the horizontal opposed twins move, you know, they run pretty smooth. You can't really tell, but oh man, everything's hot now. I don't know what I can do. It's just kind of sitting there. So let's clean up the old girl. Pull that out, and then we'll clean everything out from inside there. I hate working on a dirty machine. There's nothing worse than fighting grease and grime the entire time you're trying to fix stuff. So we'll take the extra hour and clean it up and make things easier. good as it's going to get. Okay, we finished pressure washing as much as we could, and now it's not too gross in there. You can actually see the steering valve, the fittings and everything on it. It's not covered in grease, but it's still bad. The engine's missing a couple mounting bolts. The main reason for pressure washing was really just to get as much of this off as possible before I dive into the leaks that it's got. So let me show you what we're doing. I've got parts to put new gaskets on the breather plates, the valve cover plate and the breather plate, a new breather tube, and a new breather reed valve, and the little filter there. Also, I think that we're leaking a little bit out of the fuel pump where it mounts. There's a gasket underneath it, so we'll pull that too. And then we're going to pull all the tins, do the head gaskets, clean up everything. I may end up pulling the flywheel if it looks like it's got an issue with the rear main, which actually I guess is the front main on the way the engine's sitting. And then we're also going to put some new hardline tube on the oil filter pressure lines. These are leaking severely through the hose itself, and I bought enough tube to go all the way from the adapter plate up to the filter housing here, and the adapters to do that. And then last, we're going to plumb in the gauge, as I mentioned before, and mount it up on the dash. And we'll hook the sending unit, the low oil Sentry sending unit back up. So I've got a T to put in here, so I still have the low oil light. But all of this is going to be made much easier with the engine out. So we'll go ahead and get started pulling this thing out of here. It cleaned up okay. It's 25% better. And once the engine's out, I'll probably get to some of the wiring too. I was noticing that the charging circuit is getting real hot here over by the fuse. And the charging light will come on and off depending on how you wiggle this thing. So I know I've got some resistance in here, some bad connections. This one coming off the solenoid's real loose. Clean up the grounds and all that too while we're in there. So let's get down and dirty and get that thing out of here. Okay, let's start with the easy stuff. Wiring, fuel, stuff that doesn't need much work. Yeah, this one's getting some new cables. Yeah, we're replacing that. Definitely replacing that. And of course that's not the same size, because why would it be? 7/16. 7/16 on the positive and a 1/2 inch on the negative. Oh, nice. Nice and floppy. This will just make things easier. Have more room to work. Oh, wow. Nice. The battery tray's seen better days. It's really crusty in here. This is going to break. Yeah, that's just going to break. Well, I guess we'll leave that for now. It'll be easier to do when it's when the engine's out. Rusty too. I'm really surprised this thing cranks as good as it does. These connections are terrible. Starter wire there. There's a ground. So you got a green for the ground and red for the positive connection here to the solenoid. Be the signal wire, and then the main battery power here. And this is the wire that's getting hot. This guy here. That's the one that gets hot. Alright. This out of the way. So there's the main cable there. This is the low voltage sensor here. And we don't need to go much further than that, not now at least. Just tuck this back up out of the way. Okay. So, fuel. And then throttle, I'll leave the exhaust hooked up. There, that'll work. I think, yeah, well, I guess we might as well get the drive shaft while we're over here. Oh nice, I'm gravity feeding out this line. Get a pair of vice grips and clamp that so it doesn't leak. That should be good enough. If it leaks, we'll do something about it. Alright. Yeah, while we're on this side, we'll just get the drive shaft out. I'm going for this guy here. Never taken one of these apart before. Looks like socket head cap screws on that. It looks like I can probably get a ratchet on there too. Yeah, I think I can get a ratchet on it. Yeah, we'll try using a ratchet instead of a wrench. Wow, you know, that would be a lot easier if that battery tray wasn't in there. How does that come out? 2 bolts here. Yeah. Throttle cable. This is really not that bad. See if I can avoid pulling anything else. They're loose. They're loose just like everything else. Might be easier with an Allen wrench. Yeah, they're loose. They're loose enough. I'll just get an Allen wrench. Yeah, that's close enough. Nice if I had a stubby one. Huh? Maybe a 1/4-inch ratchet would be better. Let's see. Yeah, one size up. Uh-huh. Kind of fits. With them not being that tight, I'm just going to go with the closest one I got. Kind of interested to see what these drive shaft joints look like. I've never had one of these series before, but they're supposed to be like a CV joint. As you could probably, I don't know if you can see it in there, but no, you can't see it from that angle. I did over grease it pretty good, so that's part of the reason it's so greasy in here. A lot of this grease is just old though. Let's grab the parts bin. See if we can rotate it. Well, yep, socket head cap screw. One more. Oh, that's right. The ragged edge of being able to be pulled out by hand. Oh, no it's not. That one's, is that one stripped? Someone's been in here. Huh. The only one that's tight is one that's got the head boogered on it. Wonder if it'll spin out the regular one. I'll be getting a new one of these, huh? Man, just can't get that thing to go. This size is too big, the other one's too small. That's a... Oh, it doesn't help that I'm using Torx bits because I don't have the smaller size in the... I don't have the 1/4-inch drive for the Allens. It's coming. It had to be that one, didn't it? Yay! Just dropped. Okay. So I guess, so I don't mess this CV joint up. Maybe I'll leave that one bolt just sticking through there. Alright, yeah, I'm just going to drop it out of the way and just let it hang there. The one bolt that's in it is holding the whole assembly together, so. So, drive shaft is out of there, or disconnected, and we'll go back and work on some of the rest of the externals. Okay, so we got a PTO wire over here. Yeah, PTO wire here, and then the main section of harness here with the lighting The lighting harness was all janked on this, so I just got it lubed up and set to the side. There's the wire for the starter. I'll just leave it connected for now. The starter's way underneath here, so I'm not going to bother with that. Let's see, we got throttle cable, choke cable. So, there's the choke cable. It should be pretty easy. Choke cable's out. Set it to the side. What else we got? Fuel's unhooked. This goes over to the other side. That goes to the magneto. Fuel line from the fuel pump goes straight to the carb, so we're good there. And we got a throttle cable. Throttle cable comes in here on the opposite side. And looks like same size, 1/4 inch. On some of these cables, and I didn't do it with the choke, but what I like to do is mark the cable before it comes out, so you know you have a good starting point for putting it back in. You know kind of where it was before. Not saying it's right, but you know, every little bit helps. And how's that going to come out of there? It's got to pivot down. Okay, I got to take the ground out. So 7/16 on the ground. Nope, 3/8. So it grounds to the intake here on the opposite side. There's the ground cable. We can pivot the throttle out of the way. Yeah, here's the throttle cable. So now we can pivot that down. The ground cable was coming across right here, so couldn't pivot it out of the way. Okay, throttle cable's unhooked. This wiring just goes from one side to the other. The oil filter, what am I going to do about that? Take it off as an assembly or disconnect it? If I disconnect it, I'll have fluid everywhere. What we got here? They welded or they got... Might be nice to keep it on there as an assembly, because then I don't have to have a fluid connection open. The one good thing about the leaky lines is none of the fasteners over here are difficult to work with. Wow, they're gross though. Alright, we'll just pivot that up out of the way like that. Sit these back in there. Okay. So I'll take the pressure gauge off now. It's just going to be in the way. This nice little rag I had here was to try to prevent all the fluid from coming down these hoses as the engine was running, because it was leaking so bad that it was pulling down in the in the shroud. What we got there? On this oil pressure gauge, I'm going to use a hard line to go from here up to the dash, and then just use a small section of the nylon to get to the gauge, because I don't like this nylon here, especially with it coming. I'm going to plumb it through the shroud, and I don't want that nylon tube getting cut. That'd be a bad day. Okay, gauge is out of there. Okay, gauge is out. Drive shaft's disconnected. No fuel. No throttle. Oop. Be careful with that. Okay, I think we can start taking it apart. So it looks like we would have 4 bolts holding the engine plate to the frame, a 9/16. This one just came out by hand, and I don't have 4, I think I have 3. I didn't mention this before, but I do have it sitting on jack stands now, because the front bolts for the plate are right over top of the axle pivot, right here. So I'm going to pivot the axle out of the way. This part reminds me of pulling the engine on the 1250. Same kind of deal. You got to get. Oh, nice. That one's got a nut on it. Fun. The one in the back didn't have a nut on it. Alright, that one. Whoa. It's a weld nut. The welds just aren't connected to the plate anymore. It's a weld nut. So that should have been welded to the plate. We'll have to address that. The next one is back here. I don't know, about 8 inches back on that side. This one. Hopefully the weld nut's good on this one, because that one looks like more of a pain. There's number 3. Oh, do I have 4? Maybe I do. So I have 4 on the plate. I don't have 4 bolting the engine to the plate though. So plate to frame, I actually have 4. But engine to plate, I don't. Need some leverage on that one. That might be better done with the. Let's grab it this way. Nah, I don't want to booger it up. Grab a 9/16 socket. So I mentioned that the reason I'm doing this is to fix the leaks. I think that I could have run the engine the way it was. It sounded good and had good oil pressure, but I'd like to make it a mower this year if I can. And that's some pretty heavy work on an air-cooled engine. So for peace of mind and to make sure that I don't run into anything unexpected. And really, it's in my mind, it's good practice to pull the shrouds anyway. So the reason I'm pulling it out is to fix leaks, but also to pull the shrouds and make sure everything's clean in there and I'm not running into any unexpected surprises, as opposed to the expected surprises, right? Okay, I think yep, it's loose. The mounting bolts for the engine plate to the frame have been taken out. The wiring's disconnected. The fuel line's disconnected. And the cables are disconnected. And I've got the oil filter housing just sitting up on top here. Probably strap that down before I go heaving and hoeing and getting this thing out of here. Say a prayer for my back. So I was saying that there's 4 bolts to hold the plate to the frame. There's 6. I had one already pulled off over here, the 2 rear ones. So I had that one pulled off to get the other screen out. There's one right here. So this would be the last one. Okay. Oh boy. This is a little hairy on those jack stands, so I'm going to put it on the ground for this. I really like that they put an extra bend in this quick attach bar here, so you can jack up right here and not bend the bar. That's good thinking, Cub. I don't know how many of the wide frames I've seen with that bar bent. How's this going to work? Slide it forward. Yep. I don't think it's going to go any further than that, though. Oh, boy. How? Oh. There's some more. Wow. Oh man, I gotta clear. There's a bracket right there. I gotta clear that. Oh, here we go. All right. Now what? It's loose. I don't know why it's not. What is it hitting? Actually, it's hitting something over here. Oh man, I bet it's these. I bet it's those Frankenstein bolts. I think the back of the Frankenstein bolt has a welded nut, so I don't know how much clearance this is really going to give me. It doesn't look like it's going to be enough, even if I do take those out. I mean, I guess I could unbolt the engine from the plate. Lift it up that way. That may be what I have to do until I understand how this is supposed to work. Flying blind on this one. Never done it before. Here's one bolt, just loose, sitting there for the engine. And we got another one there. There's 2 bolts. Hand tight. If this was a quiet line K-series, that engine would have been flopping all over the place. Alright, then we got back there. Alright, shove it back. Yep, there's one there. And I don't think there's one on the opposite side because there's only 3. Oh boy. I have a nut on it. Yeah, it's got a nut on it. And this shroud's in the way. On. See if I can get a wrench in there. I'm going to need another 9/16 to get to that. The shroud's in the way. Come in this way? Maybe. It's not tight, so I'll then grab it with something. There it goes. Got the two motor mount bolts out on this side. The one back by the starter is pretty hard to get to. The starter gear where it comes into the shroud goes right over, almost right over top of the motor mount bolt. So that was not fun, but it's free. So let's see if we can get it out of there. Oh jeez. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, that thing is not light. Sure I don't hurt anything. Whew. Wow. I think that's stable. Yeah. It's out. The Mag 18 is out. This is why it came out. Look at this, dude. So gross. There she is. That is one heavy motor for a small engine. For an 18 horse engine, that thing is not light. Wow. Kind of regretting making those brakes nice and tight now. It's on the bench. And to pull it up from the rafters to get it on there. That is one heavy motor. So like most situations, the first time you wrench on anything, it takes about twice as long as it does the second time. So here's the reason that I fought getting the engine out. This is the plate, and the plate is notched so that you can tilt the plate like this and get it out. What I should have done, instead of unbolting the motor from the plate, is I should have just taken the battery tray out, and then I would have been able to pivot the motor and slide it out. Hindsight is 20/20. Luckily those engine mount bolts were pretty loose, so I was able to separate it from the plate while it was in the frame. Looks like it's real fun to do if all the bolts are still tight. So just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. It'll be going back in with the plate attached. Not I won't be bolting it to the plate after it's installed in the frame.